It's the middle of the day, and the sky is going dark. Birds stop singing. Crickets start chirping because they think it's night. The temperature drops 10 degrees in a matter of minutes, and for a few minutes you can see stars in the middle of the afternoon. This is a total solar eclipse, and you know exactly what's causing it. But for roughly 300,000 years of human existence, nobody did. A total solar eclipse crosses the same spot on Earth only once every 375 years, on average, which means most humans who ever lived saw 10 times in their entire life. No moon passing in front of the sun, no orbital mechanics, just the sky going dark, for no reason anyone could explain. Most people assume ancient humans just panicked, screaming, running, assuming the world was ending. And in some places, that's exactly what happened. But that's not the whole story. Not even close. Because in dozens of ancient cultures, eclipses weren't just terrifying. They were data. The real story isn't about ignorance, it's about how fast humans turned fear into science, and how that science reshaped entire societies. The earliest written record of this comes from ancient China, around 2137 BCE. According to the Shu Qing, one of China's oldest texts, 2 royal astronomers were responsible for predicting eclipses. Their names were Shi and Ho. Their job was to warn the emperor before the sun went dark, so proper rituals could begin. One year, according to legend, they failed to predict an eclipse. The story says they were executed for the failure. Historians still debate whether this actually happened or whether it's a moral fable about the price of getting the sky wrong. Either way, it tells you something. In ancient China, astronomy wasn't a hobby. Getting an eclipse wrong could cost you your head, literally. Let's start in Nineveh, in what's now northern Iraq, in the library of King Ashurbanipal. By the 7th century BCE, Babylonian astronomers had been recording eclipses on clay tablets for generations. Every eclipse, every date, every direction the shadow moved. They noticed something nobody else had noticed. Eclipses repeated on a cycle. Every 6,585 days, roughly 18 years and 11 days, the same alignment happened again. They named this pattern the Saros cycle, and it let them predict eclipses before they happened. The Babylonians weren't alone in cracking this code. In 1901, divers found a corroded bronze device in a shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera. It turned out to be an analog computer built around 150 BCE, with over 30 interlocking gears. Among its functions, predicting solar and lunar eclipses, years in advance. Nobody built anything as complex again for over 1,000 years. This wasn't guesswork. Babylonian priests could tell a king, years in advance, that the sun would go dark on a specific day, and be right. In a world with no telescopes, and no math beyond arithmetic, they had cracked the sky's clock. But predicting an eclipse, and explaining one, were 2 very different problems. To the Babylonians, an eclipse wasn't astronomical. It was a message, specifically a death omen, aimed directly at the king. So when astronomers predicted an eclipse, the king faced a real problem. How do you survive a sign the gods sent to kill you? The Assyrians invented an answer. Historians call it the substitute king ritual. Sarpuhi, a stand-in, usually a criminal or commoner, was dressed as king and given the throne. He held full royal privileges for the length of the eclipse. The real king vanished into hiding, calling himself the farmer in official records. When the eclipse passed, the substitute was executed. The bad omen died with him, on paper. In 671 BCE, King Esarhaddon of Assyria used this exact ritual. It's recorded in cuneiform tablets historians still study today. This was a civilization organizing its entire government around 3 minutes of darkness. But here's what's fascinating. Eclipses didn't just scare kings. Sometimes they stopped wars. In 585 BCE, the Lydians and the Medes had been fighting for 6 years. It was happening in what's now Turkey. According to the historian Herodotus, a solar eclipse darkened the sky mid-battle. Both armies stopped fighting immediately. They took it as a sign the gods wanted peace, and signed a treaty on the spot. Modern astronomers have calculated the exact date. Eclipse tables match May 28, 585 BCE, almost to the day. Some historians credit the philosopher Thales of Miletus with predicting it in advance. If that's true, a single calculation ended a war. Math as diplomacy. And here's the part almost nobody quotes. Nearly every culture on Earth built a myth to explain the same event. In ancient China, it was a celestial dog, Tianggu, devouring the sun. Villagers banged pots and beat drums to scare it off. In Norse mythology, two wolves, Skal and Hati, chased the sun and moon across the sky. In Hindu tradition, the demon Rahu swallowed the sun. It reappeared moments later because Rahu has no body below the neck. The Ojibwe shot flaming arrows into the sky to relight the sun. The Inca believed a jaguar was attacking the moon during a lunar eclipse, so they made their dogs howl because dogs were sacred to the moon goddess. Different continents, different centuries, the same instinct: make noise, fight back, restore the light. There's one more piece, and it's the strangest one. In Togo and Benin, the Batammaliba people have a tradition studied by astronomer Jarita Holbrook. She researches African cultural astronomy across the continent. During an eclipse, the Batammaliba don't fight the sky. They fight each other's grudges instead. Old feuds are set aside, quarrels are resolved, and families in conflict are expected to reconcile before the sun returns. The eclipse is read as the sun and moon fighting, a warning that humans should stop fighting too. Darkness, as a deadline for peace. It's one of the only eclipse traditions on Earth that isn't built on fear. It's built on repair. When Western anthropologists first recorded rituals like these, the obvious reading was simple: primitive superstition. Fear dressed up as culture, but that reading missed the point entirely. Every ritual, from the Babylonian substitute king to the Batammaliba reconciliation, did the same job. They gave people a way to act in the middle of an event where doing nothing felt unbearable. The myths weren't a failure to understand science. They were a technology for managing terror before science existed. Modern eclipse chasers still feel a version of this. In 2017, roughly 215 million American adults watched the total solar eclipse, in person or on a screen. Roads jammed for hundreds of miles. Hotels sold out a year in advance. You know exactly what's happening up there: orbital mechanics, shadow geometry, timing to the second. And it still gives you chills. NASA can chart the eclipse's path to within a few hundred meters, decades before it happens. But it can't explain why the hair on your arms stands up when the sky goes dark at noon. Your eyes can't tell the difference between an eclipse and normal sunlight. That's exactly why doctors warn you never to look directly at one without protection. During totality, your pupils dilate in the dark. If the sun reappears even for a second, it can burn your retina before you feel any pain. So picture it again. Midday, the birds go quiet. The temperature drops. For a Babylonian king, that moment meant hiding from the gods behind a stranger on his own throne. For a Lydian soldier, it meant laying down his sword mid-battle. For a Batammaliba farmer, it meant walking to his neighbor's house to end a decade-long feud. For you, it means checking a schedule NASA published years ago and putting on a pair of paper glasses. The sky hasn't changed. What changed is that we stopped needing myths to survive the darkness, and started needing them only to remember what the darkness once meant. Every culture that ever looked up during an eclipse was asking the same question: what do you do when the light disappears and you don't know if it's coming back? Some fought, some prayed, some forgave each other. The sky always gave the sun back. What people did with those 3 minutes of darkness was never up to the sky. That was up to them.